In February 2026, a company that was barely 4 years old crossed $2 billion in annual revenue. By June, it had doubled again to $4 billion. No software company in history had ever grown this fast. Not Google, not Slack, not Zoom. It was the fastest any business had ever scaled to this size, and it was only just getting started. It was built by 4 college kids who almost quit before they started. And then, at the very peak, the richest man in the world bought the entire thing for $60 billion. This is the story of Cursor, the fastest empire ever built, and the fatal flaw hiding right underneath it. It starts, like a lot of these stories, at MIT. 4 students who were supposed to do the sensible thing, take the 6-figure offers from Google, from Meta, from the big labs, the safe path, the kind of offer that, for most people, is the whole dream, the reason you grind through MIT in the first place. They turned it down, all of it, to build a company nobody had asked for. And here's the part everyone forgets. Their first idea failed. They spent nearly a year building AI tools for mechanical engineers. The problem? They knew nothing about mechanical engineering. It went nowhere. Think about what that first failed year taught them. The winning move wasn't to guess where AI might help a little. It was to bet everything on where it would change the game completely. They had started with just $400,000. Now they were rebuilding the most popular code editor on Earth from scratch, convinced that within a couple of years, writing software by hand would feel as outdated as printing out your email. Most startups would have built a little plugin. Truel and his co-founders did something far more aggressive. They forked Visual Studio Code and rebuilt it from the inside out, with AI woven into every keystroke. They called it Cursor. In 2023, they launched it, backed by a small check from OpenAI's own startup fund. Nobody could have predicted what happened next, because what happened next had never happened to any company, ever. Software companies are supposed to grow in a certain rhythm. You claw your way to $1 million in revenue, then 10, maybe, if you're generational, 100 million, and everyone calls you a rocket ship. Cursor did not grow in that rhythm. Cursor grew like something broke in the laws of business physics. January 2025, $100 million in annual revenue. By June, $500 million. By November, $1 billion. Cursor became the fastest software company ever to reach $1 billion in annual recurring revenue. Faster than Slack, faster than Zoom, faster than Snowflake. And it did not stop. February 2026, $2 billion. June 2030s, around $4 billion, doubling again and again in months. And this wasn't hobbyist money. By 2020s, well over half of that revenue, some $2.5 billion a year, came from big enterprises putting Cursor at the center of how they built and shipped software. Why? Because Cursor hit a nerve. Every software engineer on the planet was suddenly staring at AI that could write real, working code. And Cursor didn't just autocomplete a line here or there. It could rewrite whole files, take instructions in plain English, and act like a tireless junior engineer sitting right inside your editor. Developers didn't just use it, they evangelized it. It spread through engineering teams like a virus. It had taken just $8 million in seed money to start all of this. Now the numbers were losing all sense of proportion. Look closely at that funding ladder. A $60 million Series A. Then backed by Thrive Capital and Andreessen Horowitz, a round valuing them at $2.5 billion. Then $900 million more, pushing them to nearly $10 billion. Then by late 2025, $2.3 billion in a single round at a valuation of $29 billion. 4 kids who'd started in a dorm were now, on paper, billionaires, several times over. It looked like a flawless victory. It wasn't. because the entire empire was standing on a foundation that belonged to somebody else. Here is the thing the growth charts hide. Cursor didn't build the intelligence. The actual brain doing the coding, the model, came from other companies, mostly from Anthropic, the maker of Claude. Cursor built the car, Anthropic built the engine, and every time a developer used Cursor, Cursor had to pay Anthropic for the compute underneath. At the peak, this got extreme. By some estimates, Cursor was responsible for as much as 40% of Anthropic's revenue. No single customer is ever supposed to matter that much. When one does, the balance of power quietly begins to flip. The hottest startup in the world was, essentially, a giant sales channel for its supplier. And then the supplier asked an obvious, ruthless question. Why sell the engine when we could build the car ourselves? So Anthropic launched Claude Code, its own coding tool, a direct competitor to the company that was paying its bills. It's the oldest danger in business. When you rent your core from someone else, they can raise the price, throttle you, or simply decide to become you. It had already happened to a rival called Windsurf, cut off from the very models it depended on, then swallowed by OpenAI. And the danger was structural, not personal. Cursor didn't set the price of the intelligence it resold. Its supplier did. You can build the most loved product in your entire category and still not control the single most important number in your business, what your engine costs you. Truel saw the trap coming. His bet, the whole philosophy of the company, was that the models would eventually become commodities, interchangeable, cheap. And when that happened, the real value wouldn't live in the engine. It would live in the experience the product developers actually loved. Own the interface, he argued, and you don't need to own the intelligence. It was a brilliant bet, but it was still a bet. And with a supplier now turned predator, Cursor needed a way out. It found one. Or rather, one found it. In April 2026, Elon Musk entered the story. Through his AI empire, XAI and SpaceX, Musk paid roughly $10 billion just for the right to work exclusively with Cursor. $10 billion, not to own the company, just to make sure no rival ever could. It was, maybe, the most expensive handshake in the history of software. And baked into that deal was an option, the right to buy the entire company outright for $60 billion. At that moment, Cursor was quietly negotiating a normal funding round, $2 billion at a $50 billion valuation. Musk's move blew it up. The investors who thought they were about to buy in at $50 billion suddenly found the door slammed shut. Why raise 50 when someone will simply pay 60 to own you completely? On June 16, 2020, he exercised the option, an all-stock deal. Cursor, the 4-year-old, built by college dropouts, folded into Musk's machine as a subsidiary. $60 billion, roughly 24 times what the company had been worth just 15 months earlier. One of the fastest, largest wealth creation events in the history of technology. And consider the timing. Cursor didn't need to sell. It was growing faster than almost any company alive, with investors lining up to hand it billions. Turning that down to take Musk's offer wasn't desperation. It was a calculation. Independence is only worth something if you can actually defend it. And in an industry where the people who make the models had started making the tools too, defending it was about to get very, very expensive. But step back and ask what really happened here. Did Cursor win, or did it escape? The most successful application company of the AI era looked at a future where its own suppliers were becoming its rivals and decided the safest move was not to keep fighting. It was to sell, to the one man with enough money and enough models of his own to make the dependency problem disappear. The fastest empire ever built was also, maybe, the one that understood best how fragile it really was. Cursor's story is the whole AI boom compressed into 4 years. A brilliant idea, an impossible rocket, billionaires in their 20s, and underneath it all, a quiet, uncomfortable truth. In this gold rush, almost nobody owns the whole mine. Every player got rich, but almost none of them walked away owning the one thing that actually mattered, the intelligence itself. The winners might not be the ones who grow the fastest, but the ones who understand, before everyone else, exactly what they don't control. This is Artificial Empires, the stories behind the money, the power, and the machines. If you want to see the next empire coming before it makes the headlines, subscribe. We're just getting started.